The earth from whence we came is inextricably connected to us. It can be incredibly therapeutic to shed ourselves of the artificial constructs that consume us daily, and to let our senses gently caress the stimuli that nature reflects back at us. Our eyes interact with the photons, our ears catch the vibrations of the air around us, and our nose detects the chemical signatures adrift within that air. We must let the framework of our minds fit snugly around the contours of the terrain. To change the world, we must first plant a seed.
What do you mean?
I mean that change starts with an action that transforms material reality, but the results will not be immediately apparent or gratifying. A tree must first take root and grow before it flourishes, and the same goes for every effort put into mutual aid and direct action before it can blossom into a revolution. Every debate had is an idea planted before it can grow into a completely formed conceptual framework. Now, this world can be very toxic and stressful. So I want you to take a deep breath in and a deep breath out. And now listen closely. Are you feeling better? Let's continue. Water is a guiding force. It can show us how to adapt to our material conditions and how to change it. We should leave our minds open enough to a diversity of tactics, but remain critical enough that we are only adopting tools that will create something beautiful, beneficial, and nourishing.
That sounds familiar.
Yes. It was derived from Lao Tzu's teachings in the Tao Te Ching. Nothing is softer or more flexible than water, yet nothing can resist it. It is simultaneously a source of life, as it is just that for this tree. And through it, we can see the entire spectrum of color.
I see. But there's still more that we can learn from water, is there not?
Water can take the shape of whatever vessel it's placed in. It is wise enough to move around whatever obstacle is placed in its way. However, water isn't simply a slave to the status quo. With enough time, power, and volume, it will dissolve the obstacle. It will shape the earth around it. As Lao Tzu states, water is fluid, soft, and yielding, but water will wear away rock, which is rigid and cannot yield. As a rule, whatever is fluid, soft, and yielding will overcome whatever is rigid and hard. This is another paradox. What is soft is strong. In the same way, we can't force our will upon the people. We have to flow with them. Change comes from the actions of every individual among the masses, percolating up from below. The movements as a whole shape the earth like a river. There's an anarchist tactic in South America known as Especifismo, and of it, the Gaucho Anarchist Federation writes, "We feel that the level at which workers' movements and popular bodies organize and operate should not be dictated by politico-ideological outlook, nor manipulated by schemes devised in quarters far removed from the sharp end of those struggles." They also state, "As we see it, there is no struggle for the people, and no struggle through the people. Either we fight alongside the people, as militants pursuing a class option and having some profile among the people, or else no libertarian struggle is possible. This is because nothing can take the place of organized people. Only the self-organized people can create people's power, increasing the level and intensity of the struggle as the political awareness spreads that revolution is feasible and necessary." In case my earlier words sounded too much like incrementalism, I would like to assure you that it was only to console those dismayed by the lack of immediacy in the results of your actions. I am very much a proponent of real radical action, but every act of radicalism, no matter how small, counts. To be sure, this dam is about to break, and we need to be a molecule of water within the current of the flood. As my material circumstances have changed, I've been thinking about how to best effect change. I've always been occupied with the effects of conceptual frameworks, but Paulo Freire helped situate it in a material context. Our minds are all trapped in a conceptual cage, and sometimes we need help recognizing the source of our oppression. In Paulo Freire's book, Pedagogy of the Oppressed, he writes, "In problem-posing education, people develop their power to perceive critically the way they exist, in the world with which and in which they find themselves." He continues, "If this view be true, the revolutionary process is eminently educational in character. Thus, the road to revolution involves openness to the people, not imperviousness to them. It involves communion with the people, not mistrust."
This is a bit abstract. Can you give me an example?
Well, we are a lot like Mojo here. We are trapped physically in the sense that we are limited and confined by the fence around the perimeter. But unbeknownst to us, the gate is open, yet we stay, because conceptually, we don't know any better. We are trapped within the fence around the perimeter of our minds. We have to show Mojo the way out, and walk with him, to help clear the way of the obstacles that impede his liberation. Mojo might enjoy the companionship of his adopted human pack, and he might enjoy having resources provided to him in exchange for his lack of mobility. But how could he know that he wouldn't prefer life outside if he doesn't have the cognitive tools to conceive it? This is much like capitalist realism.
Dude, I don't care about your dog. How does this apply to humans?
What do you think this is? It's impossible to know when it's obscured and you lack the necessary context. All is revealed when you zoom out. Someone might say, "I think you should work to earn a living." To which the appropriate response is, for who? For a capitalist or yourself? If it's not necessary, then why? If it's necessary, but someone is unable to participate, then should they be allowed to die if we can prevent it? Someone else might say, "I'm proud to be an American." The appropriate response would be, why? What is included in the category America? Why would it not include the corrupt U.S. institutions and power structures that define America? Why would it not include the foreign and economic policy that led to the suffering and deaths of many all over the world? If it does include those aspects, then why would you be proud of them? Here's a question that's important. What do you think about climate change? Not to be dramatic, but this world is falling apart, and it's falling apart explicitly because of capitalism. This footage was taken of the fire in San Diego, and there are much worse fires up and down the West Coast. In South America, in fact, all over the world. The southeast coast has been hit by hurricanes, and there is confounding weather phenomena in other areas. The important questions to ask here are, if capitalism and our economy need to exploit the earth to its detriment, and accumulate and waste resources to survive, but in turn our planet will be uninhabitable, what course of action does that leave us with? Only one, really, if we are serious about our survival. Among the deniers, there will be several flawed assumptions they are probably completely unaware of, that hold together their framework. You will need to attack each of those assumptions. Freire lays out a useful strategy for this type of education in his book. First, your relationship with the subject must be dialogical. Bring yourself to their level and become a critical co-investigator. In your words, you are going to want to inspire reflection and action. Through dialogue, you must dig to discover their objective situation and their awareness of it. During this process, you will find what Freire calls generative themes. Generative themes are the material representation of concepts, ideas, hopes, values, etc., of the time in which the subject exists. Themes have an interdependent relationship with limit situations, which are obstacles people must overcome. Often, you will find that the limit situations conceal the themes, and the people are then unable to act on them. So an example of a theme, as it is for many in our current epoch, would be domination. Usually, the perception of the form of domination will be obfuscated, and the subject being unable to perceive it gives us our limit situation. People will often have a conception of reality that will be difficult to penetrate, and the way to do this is through coding and decoding. Coding entails creating an abstraction, or a representation of their situation, showing the elements it's comprised of and how they interact. Decoding is returning to the parts from the holistic view. You relate it to that person's objective material situation. You show them why an element of reality is relevant to them.
So if I were to say an alcoholic is a good man because one drinks to relax after a hard day's work to take care of their family, what would you say?
I would say you are certainly drawing a relevant connection between being a worker and drinking. However, I'd point out that there is something missing. Why do you drink? Maybe because you're stressed. Why are you stressed and what is entailed in hard work? Is all the work that you do stressful? Probably not. What makes hard work stressful? Maybe it's your relation to that work. Maybe it's your relation to the person who requires you to do that work. Maybe it's your low wages. Maybe it's exploitation. There is much more gold in Pedagogy of the Oppressed, and I'd suggest you give it a read. We are all complex organisms navigating a landscape of language games that form the politics of our societies, that inform the actions of every individual, that comprise the movements that shape our Earth and our world. Aside from our particular form of language, we are not that different from this ant attempting to provide for its colony. If we do not take the correct course of action, meaning if we do not reconnect with the Earth's ecosystems and forge the correct pathways to building a non-hierarchical, decentralized society, we will wither away and die, much like this tree. Our leaves will brown and prevent us from turning the sunlight into the energy we need to sustain ourselves. If we die, life will fortunately continue for the Earth. If our society falls, life will repopulate as it does when a tree falls. Thus is the cyclical form of nature. However, it still is not too late. We still have the chance to plant something that will grow into something alive and thriving in concert with its environment and with the people that comprise it. It's not too late, and if you wish to join us to help pitch in to building a better world, go ahead and grab yourself a brick. There are plenty to go around. You can also help by building and organizing mutual aid networks in your neighborhoods. If you have access to land, start a commune based on your principles, start a farm, and donate the food. If you are more of a political type, start building the infrastructure of communalist assemblies through which you can connect to mutual aid networks, unions, and non-capitalist cooperatives alike. Change is possible. It is up to all of us to do it.
You got something? They're just going to improv as we go. The rooster crows from dusk till dawn. I don't get along when the electricity's gone. Walking down Dewey Place to Cameron Courts to get my take of a few ounces of sanity. Wake and bake just before you leave. Meet me up on the hill by the old Campo Mill, Highway 94. Some things never change, and I hope they stay the same. Like those memories that just won't fade. Good friends that I made, some are old and some are dead. And some of them, they're still the same. Meet me up on the hill by the old Campo Mill, Highway 94. Meet me up on the hill by the old Campo Mill, Highway 94. I feel like my guitar too. Does it sound weird?
I think it needs to be a setup.
Definitely.